Hello everybody and welcome back to the Smite Draft League. It's playoffs time, and more specifically semi-finals time here in the Immortal division. We have a matchup between the Wild Inferno and the Stormcallers coming your way to bring you all that action. I am DoctahShru, joined here today by DivineApe. How you feeling going into this one, Divine?
I'm feeling good. I'm excited to see, sort of just like what these two can bring to each other. We know that I think it is the Stormcallers are undefeated, so that oh, Wild Inferno's undefeated. That's my bad. Okay, so Wild Inferno's undefeated. So I'm excited to see, what sort of Stormcallers bring to, sort of, take them down.
Yeah, going to be a tough matchup for sure. Wild Inferno got here off of the back of an FF, unfortunately, in round one. And Stormcallers won the first game of their set, and then the second game was FF. So both of these teams haven't, played a full set in the playoffs quite yet. This is going to be their first kind of test to see how things play out. And it's their ticket to the finals. So a lot on the line for both of these teams. And as picks and bans get underway, we will not be seeing an Agni or a Hebo, as those are the first two bans that come through.
Those are interesting bands too. Obviously, Agni and Hebo are good, and so is Rama. But I was expecting to see Ao Kwang, Pele, Arachne, sort of like the heavy hitting junglers that have sort of been dominating as of recent history. Like, so it's weird to just not see those gods. But I don't think Agni, Hebo, Wukong, Rama. I think those are all pretty standard stuff that you really don't want to go against.
That's what I was keeping an eye out for, was the Raijin Wild Inferno. Gonna take that one off the board. He's been such a menace since he got that love in the most recent patch. So they don't want to go up against that. And Stormcaller is going to make sure that Wild Inferno don't get their namesake character and ban away that Pele.
Yeah, Pele, one of the heavy hitting junglers I mentioned, just has been running a tear.
Now is the
It just brings
time.
so much to a team comp in terms of, engaged, high damage, and sort of mobility of the map. So definitely smart to take that off the table.
Nike, the first lock in here for Wild Inferno, a solo laner that has been in a pretty decent spot for the past few patches, but I'm going to be honest, not the one I expected to see locked in, especially first overall in the draft. How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, if it wasn't Azteck on the Nike, I'd be shaky on why they first picked it. But this is Aztec's favorite god. We've seen him dominate every week on the Nike whenever it gets in his hands. It's really a pleasure to watch. So I mean, I don't think Stormcallers would have banned it out. So maybe they could have picked it later in the draft. But I don't mind just getting your solos like confident first pick to sort of start your draft.
Well, speaking of a confident
Wisdom
first
shall
couple
be
picks
my
here,
shield.
Stormcaller is going to get all the global presence in the world, Chernobog and Athena as their answer back to that Nike. That's a scary top two.
Yeah, that's tough to deal with. One of the ways you can always win a game, with like Chernobog or Athena, just by sort of being where your opponent isn't. That's something just like 5v4s are way easier to win than 5v5s. Especially if it's like somewhere like 3v5 and Chernobog and Athena rotate over to a fight.
Mhm.
Yeah, Wild Inferno are gonna have to be really careful about taking fights while the enemy has their ultimates up.
Well, speaking of ultimates pressure, we got the Ares locked in, pairing that up with the Toth. That is a wombo combo if I have ever seen one. I feel like this is just hard hitter after hard hitter locked in for both of these squads so far.
Yeah, you can see a lot of hard hitters as well as like really good synergy. Chernobog and Athena being able to be anywhere on the map because of their ultimate synergizing together. You know, we all would love to see a big Ares pull into a big Thoth ultimate. That would just be, like chef's kiss, like so fun to see. And then Stormcallers even going with the Ratatoskr as their third pick here. Also really smart because it has semi-global pressure, maybe not as much as Turnibog and Athena, but still like super high mobility, can get anywhere on the map very quickly. So while the front, we're gonna have to be careful about just like taking any fight sort of in the early game with the Stormcallers, just ability to be there.
Yeah, and the Stormcallers can just kind of show up wherever they want to be at any given time, which could lead to fights going their way, or maybe even like sneaking some objectives. They have a lot of potential to have some shenanigans with all that mobility. Wild Inferno gonna ban away the Jormungandr and the Amaterasu, while Stormcallers take off the Thor and the Freya from the board. With all the mobility the Stormcallers have, what do you expect to see from their mid laner? Kronos is the answer. I'll answer it for you.
I wasn't
didn't.
expecting to see Kronos.
Yeah, that was not on my list.
Interesting. I thought Stormcallers were going for like a more sort of like early game centric, maybe like group early fight together. I don't hate picking like a super late game mid laner. Um, I think I would have went towards something like a Scylla, or maybe even Janice is really good now, or even like something like uh maybe even something like as little as like a Nuwa, like something that like can actually like bring a ton of damage and also like help at these fights. But a Kronos is going to be super late game. I wonder what their like idea behind it.
Yeah, it's an interesting pick to say the least. I did not imagine to see that today. On the other side, Wild Inferno, much more, what I'm not surprised to see. On Her has been in a great spot for a while.
Yes.
Such a hard-hitting ADC. And then Hunbats, I fear no evil is always going to be one of, if not the best ult in the game. So I'm never surprised or upset to see him locked in.
Yeah, I mean, with Wild Inferno's draft, round that out, they have incredibly good team fight. With On Her Thoth, just like such a good backline together, peeling for each other as well as just dealing like single target damage to whoever's in front of them. You have big Ares ult to pull beads. You have big Hunbats ult to pull beads. You have Azteck is going to create a ton of space on the Nike. I think this is such a good, well-rounded draft from Wild Inferno. I I I like the tier pick last for Stormcallers. They might be looking at Shock. I'm interested to see who they pick here. Shock's interesting. See, the reason I like tier was because of like the lane pressure into Nike, you're able to clear the wave really fast and then rotate over to mid lane. Shock also does that really well. So you won't have to really like box Aztec in lane and maybe like try to beat him on his best god. What you can do though is you can clear the wave, and then maybe you look to pressure buffs with the Ratatoskr, or even go over to the mid lane and sort of get pressure on the Thoth. So I actually like the Shock into this matchup specifically.
Makes sense to me that the Stormcallers lock in Chalk. It is what their team is based on. So I like seeing them lock that in there.
Mhm.
My only issue, and I want your opinion on this here, Divine. The Stormcallers, they have all this mobility with their ultimates, but that means that their ults aren't as like impactful in a team fight like Wild Infernos are. If they don't have the like numbers advantage in the team fight, do you think they have as good of a fight as Wild Inferno, or are they going to struggle a little bit?
They're definitely going to struggle a little bit. If it is a 5v5, 3v3, whatever it is, if the numbers are even, Wild Inferno just has better, characters as well as, ultimates for those events. If it is any sort of even fight where it's not all five, Stormcallers have a better chance of getting there and just creating a numbers advantage out of thin air. So that's where they should be looking to, sort of get their pressure from. I'm thinking like even like 5 through 10 levels, 5 through 10, just getting in there, forcing 4v3s, forcing 5v3s, and just making sure that these aren't even fights. Because Wild Inferno, obviously their comp is super good at taking these even fights. They've shown themselves, having not lost, that they're going to be dominant themselves. So I think you have to force those uneven fights and make sure that the numbers are in your favor.
Well, Stormcaller's going to try and float like a butterfly, while Wild Inferno are going to try and sting like a bee. Let's hop into game one and see which one ends up being better out. Welcome in everybody to game number 1 in this semi-finals matchup between Wild Inferno and Stormcallers Immortal Division. I am excited to see how this one plays out because, as we were talking about a lot on the desk, it's a difference in playstyle, a difference in prioritization of what these teams want to do with these comps. And I'm going to ask you the hard question now, Divine. Do you feel like Wild Inferno or Stormcallers came away with a better draft, and who's going to be able to pilot it to a win today?
Now I can go for the easy answer and say Wild Inferno. You know, if you're watching Immortal, you should be betting on Wild Inferno. I actually think Stormcallers have the better draft. Outside of this, Chronos is the big question mark for me. I just think Chernobog, Athena, you can steamroll the game and make it so that some members of Wild Inferno just can't play it. And then as long as you transition that into a strong mid to late game, the game is all yours. So I think that Stormcallers have like the better draft of just being able to do that. It's just, can they execute against a team that's as good as Wild Inferno?
Going to be hard indeed. Execution always going to be important here. Everybody on both teams remembered their recipe, which, I mean, I have a hard time with that. So honestly, already a win for both sides.
I haven't cooked all season. I'm forgetting that recipe every game. I back at like 5 minutes and I'm like, oh well, which one stacks fast? It looks like I bought it.
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say we're probably expecting to see, you know, just looking at the recipes, a lot of bao, a lot of gooseberries. It seems to be the strongest too, and everyone knows that. But really good on everyone to be able to, you know, just sort of like remember their recipes. You can tell everyone's taking this seriously.
Yeah, 100%. And bao is just so good. Who knew that casting your abilities more often was a good thing? And bao gives you exactly that. A shield buff is going to go the way of Wild Inferno. Good early rotation from POWAAAAHHHH to make sure that happens. Doesn't look like any skirmish is going to happen over there. Azteck taking a bit of poke. But I mean, Chalk's early game, that's kind of to be expected, right?
Yeah, Shock does so much damage early. You know, and it's base damage too. And on top of like the bluestone procs he's getting on each axe and each spin, he's doing so much damage and a big AoE, it clears the wave. Yeah, it's really tough for someone to sort of just box that character, which is probably why Azteck elected to go tier 1 breastplate, you know, just to make sure he has a little extra protection so he's not, you know, getting too low or getting soloed in the early stages of the game.
On the other side, Voulg has picked up T1 of what I assume might be a Gauntlet of Thebes. We've been seeing a little bit of that in the solo lane. It's something that kind of caught me off guard when I first saw it in the SPL. What does Thebes early bring to a god like Chalk?
Well, we know it's going to get stacked. That's what's cool about Thebes, is that like you'll get minion assist just by playing the game, essentially. So, I mean, if you look at Thebes by itself, it just gives a ton of prots to you and whoever's standing next to you, on top of the early health that, you know, keeps you alive. I think it's a really strong item on its own, and then the aura is just a bonus. So if your support's not going there, you definitely should be picking it up on solo laner. I don't personally like it first. I think you could get it second, third, fourth, and still stack it because you're not really getting a ton of minion assists until you group together. But I don't hate it either. I don't think there's any item you could build that would sort of stifle Shock's early game, because a lot of that character's, you know, strengths come from his base kit.
Other thing build-wise is kind of catching my eyes here is what CosmicVibez is opting to go for on this Chronos. He is a mage, but he's a mage ADC. Might have to hold that thought, though, as almondbutter could be in a little bit of trouble over here in the left lane, but he has the help of Perspective Duck, who's turning around a lot of damage. Desert Fury forces out the beads, but no kill gonna be spilled quite yet, except for Ratatosker is up in the air. Could look for some sort of re-engage over here, but might not have the range and does not. Instead, just turns around. So that's a fairly big cooldown that's going to be off the board for just a little while.
Yeah, I think Wild Inferno, I think it was almondbutter, like looked and saw the rat. You could see him recognize the rat was there until they, you know, take a couple steps back. You can just see a little bit in that skirmish. Stormcallers really want to make something happen at this point in the game, which is good. That should be their game plan. But almondbutter was so good about, you know, walking away from the Athena, understanding that he's in trouble, gets the cripple on her, and then he knew that Perspective Duck was coming, so he got the second cripple onto Mario Bros to make sure set up some sort of kill potential there. Nothing happens, which is good for Stormcallers, but there's almost a return kill off that gank.
Very close indeed. You can see that POWAAAAHHH is over here kind of hovering around this dual lane as well, but not gonna commit to a gank at the moment. Both of these sides very safe for the time being in the dual lane. As I say that though, No Escape gonna at least force out some ultimates, gets both of the global ultimates out with one press of a button. So I'd say that is pretty worth it and can allow the rest of Wild Inferno to be that much safer.
Yeah, for the next 90 seconds, you don't have to worry about either of those ultimates. That is such a massive W from Wild Inferno, especially because Ares ultimate isn't like a super long cooldown itself. That'll be back up by the time Athena and Journalbox are up too. Those are all around the same cooldown. So I don't expect that to have any sort of negative effects on Wild Inferno. It's just a massive W for them.
100%. And I tried to bring it up earlier before we had a little bit of a scuffle. This Kronos build is going for a traditional style like mage build, even though he is a mage ADC. I mean, do you like going for the Sands of Time into Book of Thoth on a Kronos? Does he play different than the other mage ADCs to like warrant that?
Yeah, Kronos gets a lot of attack speed and move speed from his second ability. So I really don't think you need to build a ton of it. You should be building a ton of power on Kronos, just making sure to hold that thought, because Azteck's getting pretty low.
Azteck takes a lot of damage from Voulg there. That shock ultimate does so much in this early game. Doesn't end up dying to it and doesn't even feel the need to use the Sentinel Zeus in return. So patience coming out of Azteck. Very comfortable on this Nike, as you mentioned on the desk.
Yeah, Nike got it's not gonna like die in lane most of the time, but with the shock silence lasting as long as it does, you might be able to like burst damage Azteck down before you can get that ultimate off. So definitely he's gotta play it. I mean, he played it safe enough, but he can be safe enough.
Aggression underneath the tower as the Fear No Evil comes out, but Mario Bro does manage to get the dash off and will be safe for the time being. And that's a big cooldown as well, getting used by POWAAAAHHH there to try and find that kill. Won't have that Fear No Evil as Blizzard tries to get aggressive in the mid lane. Gonna take some poke in return from both. Gold so far in this game, fairly a decent lead for Stormcallers here, around 1,000 or so in their favor. That's not too bad 7 minutes into the game.
Yeah, 7 minutes, no first blood bounty, no big objective taken off the map. So that's just either better farm or like just getting those like mid camps. That's where that lead's coming from. So that's a really good way to sort of stifle your lead and sort of get things going for yourself. Blizzard's looking for more on the left side too.
They're gonna dash underneath the tier 1 as well, and now it is trouble for Perspective Duck, who's getting dove. He has a sliver of HP left, just a couple more autos, and Blizzard will get it done. And that's got to feel good for the Stormcallers. They get that first blood, and they committed both the Athena and the Ratatosker all to get it. So one of those, you better if you commit that much.
Yeah, we were just talking about how the lead was from, well, first blood was still up, and they had that big lead. Now it gets even bigger, a bigger gap in Stormcallers' favor, which is going to get pretty scary for Wild Inferno because we haven't seen it yet. But, with Mario Bros getting a couple items online, Athena getting a couple items online, they could start making these scary ultimate rotations, instant rotations, just start pushing this lead even further in Stormcallers' behalf, or even looking towards an objective.
If this game stays close, if neither team can snowball this out of the way, is there a team that has kind of a better late game scaling? Is it just the team fight presence out of Wild Inferno, or does the Kronos do enough to pull Stormcallers with some sort of advantage?
I think Kronos can do enough. It's so hard because that guy's so depends on execution. You know what I mean? There's you could be 50 minutes into the game, you have full power Kronos, you have his passive fully stacked, and you're one-shotting people. But if you get insta-killed by a Hun Bats, which is what happened to the Blizzard in the jungle, it looks like everyone's looking to fight. Hold that thought.
A lot more gonna come from it, but yeah, speaking of one-shots, that is the power of Fear No Evil right there. Power just absolutely deleted his jungle opponent.
Yeah, I mean, he got to the point that I was trying to get to. Like, if that happens 50 minutes in, doesn't matter how powerful your Chronos is, they're dead, and they haven't contributed to the fight at all. It doesn't matter how late game you've gotten them. So Stormcallers have to really be careful to, sort of position well in these fights if they want this Chronos to be able to carry, if this game gets to a late stage even.
God, we haven't really talked about so far in this game is Scizzy on this Toth. Another one of those mid-majors that got a bit of love and has kind of rose to prominence right here. You might see him get a little bit aggressive and actually forces out the through the Cosmos just merely by looking in Blizzard's direction. And I feel like that kind of speaks to the point I was trying to make. Thoth just feels really good right now.
Does a ton of damage, has really, does really well with like the mage items that are being built around. You'll probably see like this, book and the Deso thought this so well with both those items. And plus the love that he got, like, yeah, we're going to see a lot of Thought. Especially because Raijin probably won't get through a lot of times. The Thoughts is probably your next best bet. I think there's another fight happening in this left jungle.
Perspective Duck wanted to take that fight, tried to initiate it, and got punished instantly. Good rotation out of Blizzard there, and good patience from Mario Bro, knowing he had the backup coming in. That was just not at all what the Wild Inferno ADC would have been looking to do.
Yeah, I think he had no idea that Blizzard was there, sort of like coming to Mario Bros.'s aid. And if you're on her, you want to be taking these fights, but now you're down 0-2 because of it. You have to slow down. You have to just stack your Gauntlet of Thebes. Or, sorry, stack your Devourer's Gauntlet. Not Gauntlet of Thebes, wrong Gauntlet. And just, sort of get your items online. And looks like Stormcallers might get this Gold Fury almost uncontested.
They are looking to do it. Final Judgment is available and getting charged up, but it's going to be used to delete the Ratatosker. Where did Blizzard go? He falls underneath the Judgment of Scizzy, and now Wild Inferno are the ones who are going to pick up this Gold Fury and try to secure it for themselves. They will be able to pick up that Fury. Disaster for the Stormcallers.
And that is not a good look. Azteck's going to look to go on Mario Bros. I don't think he's going to be able to get anything off of it, but everyone's here.
Up into the air goes the Chernobog, excuse me, gonna land in the mid lane. Doesn't look like there's gonna be enough damage, but CosmicVibez, oh, that was so close. Living with a sliver, but fear no evil. What a rewind! CosmicVibez does manage to get out and now has a whole lot more HP. Up in the air as well is Blizzard. Keep your eye on the right hand of your screen, but Azteck jumps into the back and makes sure that kills goes their way. It's traded out though, so back and forth is this fight, and it's a full health chalk coming in, but unfortunate that the ultimate doesn't land. The beacon is available now though, and the Stormcallers are the one with numbers around this. Almondbutter is trying to do a little damage that he can, but it doesn't look like he's going to be able to step up to that beacon. A back and forth fight leads to Stormcallers picking up the first beacon of the game.
Yeah, they're going to get it almost easily, but that fight went so back and forth. I mean, Azteck did such a good job of getting in the back line and getting his kill, but then Mario Bros does a good job of getting the return kill, and we see POWAAAAHHHH get super low, but Voulg just like inches off of that shock ultimate. So that could have went really heavily in Stormcallers' favor. I think Wild Inferno is pretty lucky that they only got one death, and they only lost the beacon. They did get the Gold Fury right before that skirmish started, though, which is really big to them. This lead should be way larger in Stormcallers' favor if they were able to secure it the way they wanted. But really heads up play before the fight for Scizzy to just delete Blizzard, and then the rest of Wild Inferno can sort of walk up to this Gold Fury and Stormcallers back off.
I challenge you.
Yeah, that was just such a chaotic fight. I felt like at different times both teams had the advantage. It never quite ended up in one favor or the other in terms of just what they got in the fight. It was what objectives that they got on the front and back of it that really ended up playing into it. I want to point out here, Spence on this Athena has gone for a very early Magai's Cloak and even upgraded to the Glyph. Is that just Ares diff?
Ares and Hun Bats, I mean, you really can get a lot of mileage out of this. I don't know why maybe perhaps he upgraded it so early. I think He upgraded it just because of like the Ares ultimate for sure, but I also think getting the meta as early is such a good idea against like Ares and unbats, just because you're just gonna get such like a lot of mileage out of that bubble, and you probably don't want to go a beads. I think you probably want meditation and other defense. But it looks like everyone's getting aggressive on this gold buff.
Yeah, they are. Fear No Evil comes out. A good Aegis buys some time for Mario, bro, but he gets still getting looked at here. Goes up into the sky as the damage goes back and forth. Almond Butter, though, will get credit for the kill onto the Chernobog. So that ends up going their way. Blink in from Voulg. He's looking to get this Storm Call off. Does get the silence, but not too much damage to follow up on the back of it. Azteck unfazed and will stick to frontlining. There are 5 members of Wild Inferno over here in the left lane. This is a full 5-on-5, and they might look to try and siege down this T1 tower. Final Judgment is available, and he's just letting everybody know that it is. Azteck gets taunted in, but won't be too much worried about it. And that's just Wild Inferno grouping up and using that team fight power we talked about to get a free structure. And now they can back up and look for it towards whatever they want.
Yeah, it looks like what they want is more kills. As Blizzard has to use the beads against Azteck, and then they're looking for even more in their tier 2.
Oh no, Voulg might not be able to get out of this one. He's tanky on the chalk, gets pulled in by the no escape, and will be able to walk away. Wild Inferno got some low health bars themselves, and so opt to not take that fight. Stormcallers chase out a little bit, but it seems like that's where things are going to fizzle out.
Yeah, we talked so much about this Chernobog and Athena being able to, sort of create the numbers advantage in your favor. I never really thought to think, well, Wild Infernos just initiate on the Chernobog Athena, and then they have the numbers advantage, and they don't have to deal with like the global presence if that's what they initiate the fight on. That's probably why you've seen so much, sort of aggression onto this dual lane. Is you see a scrap here in the mid lane, but it looks like nothing's gonna happen of it. Oh, I stand corrected. Azteck is gonna die so fast. Wow. And that just shows the power of the Chronos build. This guy has fully stacked book. He has the Deso, and he has that poly. And those poly autos are hitting incredibly hard and incredibly often because of how Chronos can spam his kit.
Yeah, Azteck was there, and then he wasn't there. Yeah, I almost feel like you cursed him for saying nothing's going to come of it right as he died. That was insane how much damage, because Nike is tanky. It's not even like she's a backliner. Azteck has built very well, and it just didn't matter. And that's just, this game has continued to be back and forth, but all the while that that's happening, Stormcallers have pulled themselves right under a 3,000 or so gold lead in their favor, which at the 17-minute mark might not be the biggest thing in the world, but it's still a lead, and it's still something that can maybe look to snowball into more.
Yeah, 3,000 gold leads, nothing to break home about. I don't think this game's anywhere near over heavily in one person's favor. That is going to be more vision in the jungle, which can lead to more, things like getting beacon become a little easier. Maybe like a tier 2 item over, someone else. So all this stuff does help, especially with this beacon fight about to start.
Voulg is the one contesting on said beacon right now, but there are members of Stormcallers nearby. Doesn't look like they want to step up to try and contest this, and they will not. Wild Inferno will grab the second beacon of the game. I thought maybe they'd look towards this Primal Fury, but it seems like they're just going to go back to a state of farming.
And if you're Wild Inferno, that is a insane win. I mean, you're down 3k gold, and Stormcallers don't even want to fight you on the beacon. I mean, they knew all 5 were there, but all 5 Stormcallers were close, close enough to start a fight. And Wild Inferno, they get the beacon, they get their own farm, which is all you really want when you're behind like this. So, really good for them. As well as it looks like they're going for this gold buff.
Powa uses the Fear No Evil and gets the beads and the ult out of the dual lane. 1 button used for 2 on the other side. Probably going to feel worth it, but Fear No Evils haven't always led to kills. Is that something that you're worried about if you're Wild Inferno?
No, because we've seen it lead to, it usually gets like a relic or an ultimate. That time gets both. You get Chernobog beads and you get Athena ultimate, which when, Almond Butter walks up to the next fight and he ults, we're going to have to see another response. And then by that time, Fear No Evil will only have like 30 seconds left on the cooldown, and he'll be able to use it again. So I think it's never wasted as long as, in this 160-second window they go on the turn of luck.
Well, Stormcallers are going to go on this Primal Fury, but it is something that Wild Inferno is aware of. The Primal Fury is absolutely melting, though, but they're going to drop it in favor of the fight. Almond Butter pulls in a couple, and up in the sky is the Ratatosker. Will land back in the backline of this fight, trying to find some damage onto the members of Wild Inferno, but no one falling quite yet. Scizzy charging up that ultimate. Oh my god! The damage that came out of that. Mario Bro was just gone, and Blizzard was not far behind. Inferno Evil is already back up, and Spence cannot live through that damage. Powell will get that kill. CosmicVibez has the rewind again to make it out of here, but still is in a lot of trouble, trapped between too many members of Wild Inferno. But Skizzy's low at the same time. CosmicVibez can't make it out. Scizzy can, and now Voulg is the last standing member of the Stormcallers, who's just trying to get in here and maybe steal away that Primal Fury. Is unable to do so and can do nothing more than just walk away with his life.
And that's what Wild Inferno have done to every team in the Immortal division. You see Azteck zone 3 people off of the fight that Stormcallers started, and then you see Blizzard's in the air, and he has a choice to help Voulg on the rest of Wild Inferno or to stop Azteck, and he chooses to land on Azteck, and then Azteck is zoning 4 members of Stormcallers, which just makes Wild Inferno's job so easy. They get Voulg really low, he has to run away from the fight, and then it's a 5v4 that just goes in their favor. And this game's all tied up in the gold department, but I don't think Stormcallers want to take another fight, which is just the way Wild Inferno have sort of dominated the execution part of the game.
Yeah, this just feels like momentum is definitely on the side of Wild Inferno, and they're going to use that to pull this Pyromancer. Stormcallers are aware of it, but something we haven't talked about is how good the secure of this Toth ultimate is, and they will use it to make sure that they get that Pyromancer bomb. When they're grouped up as 5, Wild Inferno just looks so hard to deal with.
They work together so well, and they pick God specifically that sort of just like benefit each other. Like on her Thoth ultimates work really well with Ares ultimate, as well as Nike ultimate slowing everyone makes Thoth and on her abilities easier to hit. Fear No Evil makes everything easier to hit. It's like these guys, they work so well together, and then they draft to make that even easier to do. It's really impressive to see, and no one's really been able to figure out how to beat them.
It's working for them in this game as well. They were behind for a while, but now they find themselves with around 1,000 or so gold lead in their favor. 22 minutes into the game, the kills 8-4. I don't feel like that tells the full story of how many fights we've been having, because I feel like this game has just been on the go button for the last at least 10 minutes.
Yeah, ever since we saw Wild Inferno get that uncontested beacon, that was sort of like the turning point in them. Gaining momentum. They went back, they grabbed their camps, then they took the fight on Gold Fury. They won it. Then they walk over to Pyro, they get it. You sort of just see the momentum shift. They got that inch and they took a mile. Not to be cliche, but that's really really what happened to Stormcallers, and they're sort of on the back foot now. This is where why you draft a Kronos. Essentially, this is where he has to sort of come up big, but it looks like Wild Inferno just won all.
Beacon has spawned, and Wild Inferno are the ones capturing it, but Voulg again is here to make sure it at least is slowly being captured. Final Judgment delete. Mario Scizzy just does not miss, and that will lead to the Beacon going the way of Wild Inferno. They could look to push this even further, and they will. Stepping into the tier 1 tower, a good taunt does pull in Azteck, but he doesn't care. No escape. We'll get some actives out of members of Stormcallers, but not pull anybody. And Wild Inferno, I mean, can they afford to pull the Fire Giant here?
I think they can. I think they're feeling themselves a little bit, but after a Final Judgment like that, you make that fire call and you go there. That was so well played by Scizzy, and the rest of Wild Inferno just sort of making sure Stormcallers can't step up. It's really only Blizzard here. It looks like the rest of Stormcallers don't even want to be here.
Voulg has TP'd back in. They're going to look to try and steal, and they were not quick enough. Fire Giant going to the wastes of all 5 members of Wild Inferno. And that is just going to make it even that much harder for the Stormcallers to try and defend from this team. 24 minutes in, do you just soft defend these T2s? What's the game plan on the defense for Stormcallers here?
Yeah, I think since the Titan buff, you really don't want to let that Titan sort of like walk up your lane. You know, maybe earlier points of the, you know, after like the Titan started like unleashing. You know, you could sort of like ignore them. You know, minions will take care of them, and then you know the tower will take care of it. But now they sort of, you really want to push with them, and you don't want to be like you know pushing it, sieging against them. So you want to sort of soft defend this, get that Titan HP pretty low, and sort of stop Wild Inferno from you know storming the Stormcallers down. But it's gonna be so tough with the position the Stormcallers are in.
Well, Wild Inferno ready for this siege. We can see that Mario Bro is on the split push right now, has the ultimate and could show up at any moment. It's just a soft defense to slow down Wild Inferno here in the mid lane. That Titan that you mentioned, very healthy and stepping in towards the Phoenix now. Final Judgment up and available and does a lot of damage, but Scizzy's under pressure now. The Fear No Evil comes out and here's the Chernobog into the fight. Damage going back and forth, but it's Scizzy who gets 1 kill. Scizzy who gets 2 kills and is looking for even more. Blizzard is doing everything he can. CosmicVibez will pick up 1, but Perspective Duck immediately answers back with another. All the while, the mid-bird is just gone. They pick that up. It's a triple kill for Scizzy on the Toth, and they could just look to end here. They have their Titan. CosmicVibez has the back, but it's him versus the world. The first Final Judgment I think we've seen all game, not on the mark. CosmicVibez does get 1 though, has to use the Aegis reset in the fountain, but it's not enough. Wild Inferno are just too much and go up 1-0 here in this set. Wow.
Yeah.
If you have a player like Scizzy who can hit those final judgments, I mean, what do you do on the other team?
Yeah, you just can't stand on the map, man.
Yeah.
I mean that snipe onto the Chernobog from like the staging behind the wall. You can't blame anyone for that. That is just good skill from Scizzy. You know, it's like I can't even stand with my team, you know, without getting sniped. And I think just sort of getting in the game too, but I think you have to take the Thoth off the table. I think he's playing with such a hot hand. I mean, obviously you don't give him Raijin, but I think Scizzy just played lights out that game. It made that comeback so much easier for Wild Inferno.
Yeah, 6-0-4, 23,000 damage top in the lobby. Get this man on a different pick for sure. I totally agree with that. But Wild Inferno played well as a unit.
They did.
They just grouped up, and their cohesiveness was so incredible to watch how they were able to execute those team fights. I feel like, I mean, is it just needing to draft maybe less mobility on the side of Stormcallers, have a little bit of that, but do you think they over prioritize that?
I think their draft was good. I think Wild Inferno did a good job of not letting them execute their game plan. We saw a lot of left side pressure, you know, early from POWAAAAHHHH. And what that means is that Athena has to use the ultimate on Chernobog, and Chernobog doesn't want to leave at all. So if the fights are starting, being initiated on the Chernobog and onto where the Athena are, they can't use that global presence that they drafted to sort of get there. And then you know, once they weren't able to do that, you know, once it got to you know those stages, Wild Inferno just grouped as 5, initiated in those 2, killed one of them, and then it's a 5v4, and they actually have the numbers advantage. So I think they just did a really good job of sort of shutting down that game plan. I don't hate if Stormcallers go to a different one, or if they sort of double down and they try to execute it maybe a bit different. Maybe draft more solo pressure or more mid pressure so that you have to force power to go somewhere else. But I think they have a lot of options this next game.
Well, we'll get to see what they decide to do in picks and bans in just a moment. I feel like, I mean, second pick kind of feels pretty good, at least to me in a comp setting, being able to get 2 good picks off there. If you have to ban the Toth, what are you worried about leaving open if you're Stormcallers for that first pick? Is it just going to be the Nike again?
Um, I don't think you can get away with banning Toth, Nike without leaving something like Raijin or we saw Pele banned third as well. You definitely don't want to see Power on that. Hebo's a god you really can't leave open. Like Hebo plus Bao is insane even after the nerfs. So I think it's tough. I think you have to leave Nike open, which no one wants to hear that, especially if you're going against Azteck on the Nike. But I do think Scizzy needs to not be on Thoth. It needs to not be on Raijin. So I think those are the guys that have to go, and they have a little bit of leg room with the rest of their bands.
Well, there's the other option of just going first pick, right, and then trying to
Yeah.
pick up something like that for yourself. I feel like there's just I love metas like this because it makes picks and bans so interesting, right? And it looks like
Yes.
Stormcallers is gonna go in that first pick position. But when there's so many strong picks in so many different roles,
Mhm.
you're always going to be facing something that's really problematic, really impactful, and I think it just makes the kind of chess game of the picks and bans phase even more intense. But so far, nothing changed. Hebo and Agni going to be taken away by either team respectively. Doesn't seem like either Stormcallers want to mix it up quite yet.
Yeah. Hebo, Agni, Wukong, standard guys that have to go. Wild Inferno going back to this Rama ban. Rama definitely a solid character. Probably the best ADC, so I guess it makes sense to ban him out. Maybe um, you know, and Mario Bros really strong on it, and they probably don't want to play against it, so that makes sense as well. But Wild Inferno, they're liking this picks and ban so far. They have a lot to grab, top two, depending on what Stormcallers pick here, and it is going to be the thought.
I feel like you just have to. After a performance like that, you have to give him the respect ban. Make him show that he can do it on something else. That leaves, well, I was going to say the Raijin, but that is taken away by Wild
Yeah.
Inferno. That leaves the Pele up. Should Stormcallers want to go in that direction themselves, they could also pick up, I guess, the Chernobog. They could grab the Athena. Like we were saying, there's a lot of picks open, but Pele definitely seeming like the strongest of those. And Stormcallers, in agreement, will take that for themselves.
Yeah, and Blizzard actually was the one that got the first blood, onto, I believe it was PES last game, like on the on her. So we see a performance like that, similar early game. This Pele is a much
Now is
better
the
god at sort of
time.
pushing your lead than Ratatoskr is. Not that Rat's bad at that. That's where he excels, but Pele is just so strong right now with those recent changes to her one. And Aztec going back to the Nike just
Wisdom
makes so
shall
much
be my
sense.
shield.
And it's going to be the Athena, this time picked up by Wild Inferno. So they take that away from what Spence had in game one. They're going to have to switch up their support on the side of the Stormcallers. And that's a pretty staunch front line, in my opinion, coming out of Wild Inferno.
Yeah, and it also is a front line that's good into Pele. Like I think she struggles to deal with the sort of shielding from Nike as well as like taunts from Athena. I think Pele really wants to be a guy that's on a squishy and just deleting them. And these two guys do a good job of sort of stopping that from happening.
The global presence of Athena going to be matched by the global presence of Chernobog. Going to hand that one back to Mario Bro. And they're going to top three this chalk again for Voulg. And I'm going to be honest, it wasn't the most impressive performance on this chalk. Was that just because Wild Inferno was kind of running away with things, or what happened to the chalk?
Shall not pass.
We didn't really see a lot of right side focus at all from either team. I'd like to see that more maybe from Stormcallers. Kashak was ahead of Aztec. Remember, he got him incredibly low in the early stages of the game, and forced him to have to back off. And he had about a level lead, but really never transferred into anything. And as a solo laner, you really want to get into fights, sort of in the mid stages of the game and get on the mid laner. Janice isn't going to make that easy for you. Athena isn't going to make that easy for you. Being able to, Defender of Olympus, anyone that gets super low. So I like the shock pick. I mean, the early game they got ahead. I just need to see them do more with it.
That Giannis lock-in brings even more global pressure with alongside the Athena, and they're going to ban away the Kronos and the Ares. not letting those be in this game. So Stormcallers going to have to dig a little deeper. But first, Wild Inferno have their fourth pick available. Still looking for an ADC and a jungle. Anything that kind of steps out? Every time I go to ask you that question, they instantly hover something. So I'll redirect again. How do you feel about
Yeah.
Medusa, Divine?
Big combination with the Athena. You know, it's a classic combo. Really, it's been in the game for so long. The Athena taunt forces them to look at you, which forces them to look at a Medusa ult as well, which incredibly long CC chain, and then Medusa can dump all of her damage on you, which almost always results in a kill or a relic. And it even makes you like if you get taunted in lane and Athena's level 5, you know, it makes you want to pre-beat to run away. So you can even like bait out you know those relics when maybe you wouldn't have needed it, you know, for the damage. So just such a scary combo to deal with. And Wild Inferno is so good at working together that you know we won't see any execution errors when it comes to executing the combo.
Yeah, it's a very, very scary combo indeed. I like this top four from Wild Inferno. It seems
Mhm.
so hard to deal with already. But then on the other side, just, I mean, Chernobog Pele alone are so strong. It's kind of hard to call this early into the draft. Discordia, though, going to be the fourth pick for the Stormcallers. CosmicVibez going to take that one for himself in mid lane. Uh, is that just to give the passive over to Chalk, or is Discordia she not quite where she used to be? Is she still a force to be reckoned with in mid?
Yeah, Discord is I think Discord has always been a slept on god, not like a huge, you know, never gonna be like a huge, like super high, like DPS, you know, mage, but hitting a big strife, you know, at 30 minutes will just win you some games. Also, Cosmic is really nice on the Discordia. Also, that passive early game going to shock, like if you think back to last game, you know, in that first couple minutes, if Shock has Discordia passive, he probably kills Aztec, you know, with that
The
ultimate.
brood is
Aztec silence
ready.
can't get his ultimate off. So I think things like that really help your snowball. And when you have a god like Shock or Pele who are going to output a ton of early damage, you know, having that Discordia passive is just going to sort of excel. Stormcrawlers did a super good job of getting ahead early game. They just need to do that again, and then execute, and this game will be much more easier for them to win.
They'll round out their draft with a Geb to have that extra layer of safety. But Wild Inferno gonna lock
Mhm.
in the Arachne, who, to be honest, until one of the more recent patches, was kind of like a meme god, right? A
Yeah,
pub stomp god. But the buffs that she got has kind of brought her into the conversation. How do you feel about Arachne, especially in the hands of Powa?
it's weird because I think Arachne has the same strengths and weaknesses. They're just her strengths just got super amplified, so they sort of like outweigh the negatives. Still not a super great team fight god. Obviously, they like the stun you know, was always good. That was always the best part of Arachne's kit, but now it happening so much quicker means that you can, you know, sort of 100 to 0 someone so much quicker and be able to sort of like get out of the fights. I think it is a weird pick for this Wild Inferno draft because they'll typically pick gods that synergize well together. And I think Arachne can do that, but just not the god that I would think Power would go to. But you know, Pawa loves these, you know, one-shot assassins. We've seen him a lot on Mercury, so I think a god like Arachne sort of fits that bill well, and so I think as long as he plays well and executes on it, which we've always seen Pawa do, I'm a fan of it.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one to say the least. I feel like there's nothing left to do except for hop into game two and see how things play out. Welcome into game two here between the Stormcallers and Wild Inferno Immortal Division semifinals. Everything on the line here if you're the Stormcallers, because it's match point for Wild Inferno. The Stormcallers have opted to pick up the chalk again, sticking with their namesake, but they got this Pele, which is where all of my focus is right now for the Stormcallers team. Is it dual lane pressure that you want to see out of Delizard in the early game here?
I want to see pressure anywhere. I think dual lane is a good choice, but I also think maybe getting Aztec behind early could be something that's a viable strategy. I feel like he's a part of all these big Wild Inferno wins, just like coming up huge in these late game team fights. So I'd like to see him go after any of these side lanes. I don't think you could do a good job of camping the Janus. He's just such a good utility god of sort of like getting out of trouble, especially against someone like Pele that can't get over walls. So I think any of these side lanes could go down. Scizzy actually might be in trouble here.
He is the self portal, not enough, and Blizzard will get active in the mid lane. The one place neither one of us brought up will be the place where he finds first blood, and that's exactly what the Stormcallers are going to want here.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have that disco passive, I think, right away. And Scizzy was not ready for the amount of damage that Pele was going to output there, and he just goes down. And I think that it's going to lead to Stormcallers getting these right camps, essentially for free. And I don't even know if Wild Inferno want to step up to like these left mids as well. It's going to be rough for them to sort of get them uncontested. But that's what you want to see if you're a Stormcallers fan. Just get the lead early and continue the pressures. It looks like exactly what they're doing.
Link in from Blizzard here. Good portal, though, might have saved the life of POWAAAAHHHH, and I think it did. That could have been even more trouble there for Wild Inferno, but good team cohesion again. It's just so much pressure out of this Pele. And now even looking towards this left lane at the shield buff that's coming up, might not be done yet, is Blizzard, who wants to get aggressive. Shield buff is leashed, and Blizzard will just pick that one up for his squad.
Yeah, that was just an amazing portal from Scizzy, man. It really looked like POWAAAAHHH was going down there as a for sure kill. Just really heads up for him to help out his teammates. It looks like they're looking for pressure onto the Shock.
Voulg in a lot of trouble right now and cannot get out. Azteck will get the first kill on the side of Wild Inferno, and you mentioned maybe putting Azteck behind. Well, now we have Azteck with a lead.
Never the words you want to hear if you're against Wild Inferno. Azteck with the lead is so scary because he's so like selfless in the way that he sort of will just zone as many people that are in front of him, and then Wild Inferno do such a good job of keeping him alive that he doesn't even have to worry, because he knows they're going to come and follow him up.
Exactly what Wild Inferno would have wanted at the start of this game, but it's, we're still only 3 minutes into this game. Kills this early help to kind of build leads, but they don't really make or break games most of the time. We talked about it a little last game about, games going late, who has the better late game comp. Do you feel like either of these teams have a clear advantage should this game get to 30, 40 minute plus?
I think it has to go to Wild Inferno. I think it is closer than it looks. I think both guys have like good aspects of a late game comp, but I think just the Athenaton and Medusa ult is such a big relic grabber in the latest stages of the game, and if those relics aren't used or aren't up, someone is dead. And I think you get the same effect with sort of like Gap Cataclysm, but who can really has like a huge ultimate to follow up on that? It's really just maybe Golden Apple or Pele ult. So I would give it a slight edge to Wild Inferno in the later stages of the game, but it really could go either.
Both junglers rotate over towards the left lane, but no blood going to be spilled for the moment. Taking a look at builds here, it's my eyes are going to what POWAAAAHHH is building, though Blizzard might be in a lot of trouble. They interrupt that. Thought of Mine has the Volcanic Lightning. That's a lot of damage onto POWAAAAHHH, but he has the ultimate to buy some space. 3 space and time was also used there, but not going to find anything with it. Just a little bit of a scuffle over those left side mid harpies. But POWAAAAHHH on this Arachne, is that going to be a vital amplifier first item?
I was thinking either that or Segment Scepter. It's probably vital amplifier. Personally, I think, oh man, as Mario Bros gets out with a crumb of HP. But yeah, looks like
Spence
is going in there, but I don't know what he was thinking he was going to be able to get. I see. So he wanted Mario Bros to sort of come in a little sooner, but he really wasn't able to. But good play. Looks like a little bit of miscommunication from Stormcallers, but I like the aggression and sort of like going for this play. So I think that's fine. I don't think you lose too much by Gebel being down for the next 60 to 90 seconds.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to your point, I do think that is a vital amplifier. personally, that item, I think people build it because it works on a god, but I don't think it's that great of an item. You know, especially after like the tweaks it got. But I do see a lot of Arachne sort of like go that route, so they probably know more than I do about the Arachne build.
Yeah, Arachne, not my forte. I will definitely admit that, but it might be POWAAAAHHHH's forte as he gets in and the Athena ult comes down. POWAAAAAHHH will find the second kill for the Wild Inferno squad over there in the right lane, but because of that, Stormcallers know they can get aggressive in left, and Blizzard will instantly answer back by dropping Perspective Duck. So 1-for-1 trade across the map, solo for ADC. Not quite sure who comes out on top there.
I would say Stormcallers actually come out on top there. I think they spent a little less. I think the Pele ult isn't as impactful as an Athena ult could be. You know, if that makes sense. I think almondbutter spending that versus Blizzard spending his is just a net win for Stormcallers because they don't have to worry about that global pressure, at this moment. And I also think, shutting down a shock, as long as he gets to 4 or 5 items, it's going to be the same effectiveness as if he was, killed 2 times in the early game or killed 0 times in the early game. I think that god, is still always going to bring his like sort of like tanky mitigations. Blizzard's a little too far in enemy territory.
Hard to 1v1 and Arachne, and it's not even a 1v1. The taunt comes through, as does the through space and time, and POWAAAAHHH will get credit for the kill there, just outside of the mid lane. And that is, I feel like you worded it perfectly, just a little bit too far forward out of Blizzard.
Yeah, he was in Schitt's Creek without a paddle, man. I don't know why he's so far up there. I like the aggression from Stormcallers. It's what I've been preaching. It's what I think they should do, especially if I believe Blizzard is one with Discordia passive, but you really can't be 1v1 in Arachne that far. Looks like Perspective Duck's gonna go down to this pressure from Mario Bros and Spence. I mean, Stormcallers have gotten a return kill every time that Wild Inferno have gotten a pick on the right side of the map. We just need to see one of these teams sort of like capitalize off of these picks that they're getting.
This has given Mario Bros a little bit of an advantage here, being up 1-0 versus 0-2 in that dual lane, and it seems like maybe Stormcallers recognizing they want to keep Perspective Duck down as the Athena ult is used to save the life of Scizzy, or at least make sure that the Stormcallers don't get more aggressive. Is it because, do you think, of the combo of that Medusa Athena you were talking about, or did Perspective Duck last game on the on-hair just put the fright of God in this team?
I think it's a little bit of both. Obviously, Perspective Duck played incredibly well last game, and you want to keep the Medusa down. I also think it's just really hard to camp Janus. That's one thing I think is a net negative to picking Janus is the team's gonna opt to camp anyone else. That guy's just so frustrating to chase. I think you're like, well, hey, you got this Medusa who's got, a dash that goes 40 something meters. Let's camp her instead of trying to fight this guy through walls and stuff. You know what I mean? It's just like it's almost a no-brainer if you want to camp. So they're gonna keep taking these kills as long as Perspective Up keeps walking up to these waves for sure.
Gonna be hard for the Medusa to live here. Mario Bros does have the ult available. Doesn't look like they're going to look to get too aggressive. Thought we might see another Cataclysm ult into that, but not for the time being. This blue buff has been under a lot of pressure over in the right side. Voulg has not been able to get the last couple of them, and now with the proxying coming through, it seems like Azteck just has all the pressure in the world on the right side, but Blizzard might catch him out in the jungle and could look to do something. But Nike is just so tanky, and now there's rotations in from more members of Wild Inferno. They're just existing on this side of the jungle of Stormcallers, and there's not really much that the Stormcallers can do about it. Instead, again, they're going to just have their pressure on the left side of the map.
Yeah, I think Blizzard needs to be anywhere else right now as he got super low there, but he's going to get out. Only has to expend the ultimate. But yeah, I think he shouldn't really be on the right side of the map. I think your window to kill Azteck and maybe get Voulg back pressure, I think that window's gone. I think now that Nike has his breastplate and tier 1 of Round Shield is going to turn into more physical defense. I don't think Shock Pele do anything to stop her. POWAAAAHHHH getting super low in the mid lane.
Wow. CosmicVibez damage is insane right now. Landed every part of the kit perfectly, and POWAAAAHHH just disappears.
Yeah, I think actually his best bet might have been to get a vital amplifier proc, because he was definitely going to die there as soon as that apple was on top of him, which is kind of funny to think about. But man, just a heads up play from CosmicVibez. I mentioned he has a really good Discordia. As soon as he locked it in, I just remember a couple games where he sort of won him for his team with like big strikes in the late game. So seeing stuff like that is a big glimmer of hope for Stormcallers. It looks like there's a lot more fighting on the left side to be had.
There is. This has been the spot that Stormcallers have looked for, and they will get a kill onto Perspective Duck, but there's rotations in from so many members of the Wild Inferno right now. Scizzy has to use the beads and portals away, but it's low health bar for the Chernobog of Mario Bro as well. Cannot get away from Azteck, and the damage onto Lizard now is so much. A double kill for the solo laner of Wild Inferno. Left lane was the haven of the Stormcallers earlier, but Azteck rotates over and ruins that for them, and now they're going to look towards this first Fury of the game and towards CosmicVibez. Look at the damage Azteck is doing right now. Scizzy trying to make it out. Low health for the support as well. And it does look like the Geb will be able to make it out. POWAAAAHHH will make sure that I am wrong, though. The spider damage too much. Azteck gets a delayed triple kill. And the Wild Inferno are just running through this fight. Voulg, you shouldn't be there. Defensive of Olympus is coming down too. He has to use the Stormcaller ult, but he just has taken too much damage. No, good blink in from Lizard will at least save the life of the solo laner. Now Pele trying to get the damage off with the volcanic lightning. Just one more tick needed, but it's not enough. Azteck gets, I think, his fourth kill of that single engagement alone. This Nike is unstoppable.
Goes from 1-0-2 to 5-0-2. Azteck played that so well. I mean, I feel like I just say the same things about Azteck every game because that's what he does. I mean, he walked up to the fight. I mean, he understood that he had to be there for this gold tier if they were going to go for it. And I mean, the big aggression from, I think Stormcallers were the ones that started that fight, there. And Azteck was just so fortunate to show up. He gets his first two kills and then sort of stays zoning them because he thinks he's zoning for gold theory, but actually what's happening is he's killing everyone and just ends the fight 5-0-2. That's rough if you're Stormcallers. I think you sort of like appeased Azteck getting ahead, being like, oh, well, Shock will be fine. It's Shock. Doesn't matter if he's down 0-2, but your backline isn't the one you had to worry about with Azteck getting this lead.
Yeah, it seems impossible to deal with him. They didn't get the gold Fury. I guess that's the one kind of, at least we pulled them off Fury if you're Stormcallers, but you pulled them off Fury by, dying. Everybody just died. And now Lizard again is over here on the right side of the map. I really don't think this is where you want to be. Here comes POWAAAAHHH ulting in as well. Volcanic Lightning will buy some space, but having to use that defensively, never gonna feel good. Voulg just wants his blue buff. Hasn't had one in a while, and it seems like Wild Inferno will at least give him that. Instead, they're gonna look towards his Pyromancer, and it looks like they might be able to do it without too much contention. There are two members of Stormcallers nearby, but are they really going to try and fight this out? The golden apple does come out, and Stormcallers stole it away. They stripped that Pyromancer, at least pulling something back in their favor.
It was really smart play from Cosmic there to use golden apple. The idea is to get them off of the Pyromancer because you're afraid of golden apple sort of confirming it. But then Gab hits the big Cataclysm, keeps him right on top of it, keeps aggro the Pyromancer, and just makes it really easy to secure for CosmicVibez there. Definitely a morale booster because you need something after, the massacre that Wild Inferno pulled off, on the back of Azteck. I mean, really well played for them. And I think going for the Pyromancer was the right play there for Wild Inferno too. Just, really unfortunate that, Spence and Cosmic play that so well and sort of get that steal.
I'm sorry, we showed the gold graph and it was 600 when we first cut over. It's less than 1,000 gold between these two teams. I feel like maybe it's just Aztec diff, but I feel like Perspective Duck is in a lot of trouble. That's how I feel right now. One more tick of damage. Can't find it because guess who's here? Azteck has shown up, and Azteck will get yet another kill in this game. 6-0-2 on the Nike, but Duck isn't quite out yet. Good Petrify, and actually Spence is the one in trouble. The knockup not going to be enough, and of course it's Azteck getting a double kill. How do you stop this man? He is just running through any team fight he just decides to show up in.
You don't tunnel vision on a 1 health Perspective Duck. That's not the answer, because it looks like that's what they both did, and Azteck was happy to scoop up their lives for it. And it looks like Voulg actually might be able to get this kill on POWAAAAAHHH as he tries to bite off more than a spider can chew, but he's gonna back up. Everyone's gonna live. And Voulg will get a couple of bastions, but man, Azteck is everywhere. He just got 2 kills in left lane. How is he here to defend his tier 1? This guy just knows where to be and when. It's unfair, man. As you know, Wild Inferno, they've secured their lead and they've won every fight that's sort of been taken so far.
What's blowing my mind, and I was trying to mention earlier, is the lead is not that much. Stormcallers have been able to hold themselves in this game. I mean, DeLizard is 3-4 on the Pele. That's a pretty good slash line. It just seems like they're farming the map. What are they doing to hold themselves in this game? Because it feels like momentum-wise, it's all Wild Inferno.
Stormcallers have done a good job of getting like the return kills. After one out of the most recent massacre, there really wasn't one. But even all those kills in the early game, we always saw, well, if they had a kill on Voulg, Blizzard was in left. Hold that thought, because Wild Inferno is going to take this gold free, and it's only Spence here to stop him.
A TP in from guess who as well. Aztecs in the back line, and Wild Inferno will take this gold fury. Cataclysm needed defensively, but it's not going to get Spence out in time. Scizzy will scoop that kill up for himself. All the while, CosmicVibez trying to win a 1v1 against Azteck, and maybe is the best person on the team to try and do that. Also level 17 and has had some good damage so far, but underneath the tier 1 tower against 4, the jukes are unreal. CosmicVibez just walks away from 5 members of Wild Inferno, and they're going to look to defend this T1 tower. The TPN from Voulg to try and dissuade them further, and the T1 tower in mid does still stand. And tell me if this sounds familiar. Wild Inferno's on the beacon. Voulg, the only one trying to contest this one out, while Azteck zones away the rest of the team. Here comes the golden apple, though. Does land on one, and Voulg will get a kill onto POWAAAAAHHH. This is what Stormcallers are looking for, and now they're the ones on the beacon. Now they're the ones getting aggressive as Perspective Duck is at 1 HP again. But again, he will get out thanks to good peel from Azteck. The beacon, though, does go the way of the Stormcallers.
And this goes back to exactly what you were saying. Their lead isn't that big. Wild Inferno can beat Stormcallers can beat most members of Wild Inferno. I think everyone but Azteck can die at this point, because that 1,000 gold lead is probably all on him. And that's exactly what Stormcallers do. They killed everyone else, and they got the beacon, and looks like they were trying to get out of there, but they might get chased with this through space and time. But it looks like everyone's just going to back off. I don't think this Gabber shock will stick around too long. But Wild Inferno might just get a pyro for it.
That through space and time did a lot of damage to Voulg, who is a frontliner, and you're right, it allows them not to be able to step up towards this Pyromancer, and Wild Inferno will say thank you very much and scoop that up for themselves. If that had hit CosmicVibez, he would have been a lot of trouble, just like DeLizard is. Again, far forward on the right side of the map. It just seems like it's DeLizard's favorite place to be, but every time he's just getting punished for going over there.
He's got to be stopped. And I mean, Wild Inferno have punished him all 3 times, and for him to do it a 4th and live is, I guess that shows improvement, but he really just should not be there. Especially with the way POWAAAAAHHH just attacks any target he sees in front of him, and the way it was really scary is that anytime POWAAAAAHHH has gone on a target, even though Arachne wins, 1v1 is what the god's made to do. Almondbutter showed up, in Defender of Olympus on him to even secure that kill and secure that POWAAAAAHHH gets out without having to take a big fight or get ambushed for taking the 1v1. So you really have to be afraid of, when POWAAAAAHHH sort of steps up to you, of that presence of the enemy.
Respective Duck has the Petrify to do some damage back to Mario, but now the chase is on. Blizzard here misses the the volcanic lightning, excuse me, but does end up getting the kill. The through space and time clips them both. What a shot coming out of Scizzy on this Giannis, and now they are on the run. Here comes Scizzy, good blink to get out of the way of one. Giannis has to use the Aegis to immune the tower damage, but Pow is there to clean up Mario, and that was just a huge snipe. I guess final judgments and through space and time, if you can hit one, you can hit both.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's hitting these, you know, through space and times and final judgments like they're needles, man. Like it's so tough to, like, what do you do about it? Like, really, Mario Bros and Blizzard. I was gonna compliment them on how well they baited Medusa, you know, into the fight, and then there's a really easy cleanup. Blizzard, you know, missed the volcanic lightning and was still able to clean up the kill. And if that through space and time doesn't hit both of them, you know, they both live, they get the kill, and they get out scot-free. But Scizzy said it's not gonna let that happen. not over here. Just really nuts play from him both these games.
Yeah, he has been on top of it there in the mid lane. Something, speaking of mid lane, that I've been wanting to point out for a while is this item pickup from CosmicVibez. Bobble is the choice after Spear of Desolation. Not something I expected to see. How do you feel about it on Discordia?
I think Discordia is one of the gods that you should be getting it on. I think that her damage output isn't incredibly insane. What you're picking Discordia for is the CC of, you know, like the Golden Apple and the Strife, which is just two very, very good abilities. And on top of that, she does like a ton of damage, not on the higher end of mages, but just being able to spam those abilities more, you know, on top of Bow, which is also gonna, you know, reduce your ultimate cooldown abilities. You're gonna see a lot of strifes, and if you hit a couple of them, it might just win you the fight, which might end up winning you the game. So I do like this pick on the Discordia.
I've never thought about it that way. I think I might have to try Bobble in my next ranked game on Disco. That sounds like a very good time. And CosmicVibez is cooking on this, and it's working so far. Level 19. 1, and 2 as a big grouping around this Oni Fury from both teams. Like to see a bit of that enhanced cooldown coming out of Cosmic as they get ready to kind of at least look towards this Fury. 22 minutes into the game, you might expect everybody to be dancing towards the right side of the map, and maybe that's exactly what Wild Inferno are thinking.
Yeah, and Wild Inferno, I think taking the gold fight was pretty dangerous. You know, I agree with them sort of walking over to the beacon, but Azteck wants blood, and Stormcallers do not want any of it. They want to fight anyone else, because I do think they have a good chance of winning the fight if they do sort of get on some of this back line. A good strike, a good volcanic lightning, with Azteck is swinging us so hard they might all go on him.
It looks like they're trying through space and time. Does clip one. The beacon looks like it might go the Wild Inferno, but they haven't got it yet. The fight still continuing. Scizzy gonna portal through the wall to try and get some damage. Voulg again contesting this beacon, not letting Wild Inferno have it for free. Now he's going to go in a little harder, but that's a good taunt. The Golden Apple does land though, but there's so little health left for Spence and Blizzard, but Powa will fall to Mario. Azteck though, of course it's Azteck diving the tower, dealing so much damage, and now we'll turn back around to make sure no one can get in towards this fight. The bomb drop to try and make sure Azteck can't contest any further. We'll have to back up as he's fairly low on health. This beacon, by the way, still has yet to be captured by either team. Voulg is not letting Wild Inferno get this. The ult back in from Mario. That caught me off guard. He scared me there, trying to get aggressive. And now Stormcallers are the one on the beacon, but a blink in from Azteck sends CosmicVibez running backwards. Has the Golden Apple back again, though. Azteck will get back into the back line, but Blizzard will get one before he's taken out by Scizzy. Azteck in the green buff pit. Keep your eyes on him. I do not fear for his life in that pit. I fear for anybody who might look to fight him. But it seems like we might have... This fight is just extending so far right now. Stormcallers not giving this beacon up for anything. We've seen people back and return. Finally, the beacon gets picked up by Stormcallers, but Powa ults in. Beacon finally goes the way of your order side team. CosmicVibez under a lot of pressure and will end up falling to Prospective Duck and that should just spell the end of things.
Yeah, Azteck did 90% of Mario Bros. Health bar twice. He got the turnabout so low that he had to back. They tried to nuke Azteck and it didn't work. And then he backed and he ulted back in, and then it happened again. That was a really tough fight for Mario Bros. Really not much you could do. But Stormcallers actually got the better end of it. I think that resilience, sort of, them coming back into the fight, sort of getting their poke off, really let them get the beacon. But then they all had to go back to base, and Wild Inferno was like, okay, we'll just take this gold here.
Wild Inferno just barely get it. I thought Voulg had it for a moment there. He'll use the ult to try and find something. And once again, Delicious. Oh no, he ran right into the snipe. And that is so much problem. Good blink, though, to make sure he gets away from the taunt. But Azteck's on the chase and has enough of the speed to catch up. Azteck now Divine on this Nike, and that will lead them from Gold Fury right over to Pyromancer, and they'll pick that up for themselves as well. And look at that, Titans in mid ready to go.
And Blizzard, runs them all, tries to run them all away, but they got the Gold Fury, and the Titans are right here. Wild Inferno are going to be so happy that they're all, grouped up and ready to take this fight. Stormcallers, I don't really think they should be here. I think this is a really dangerous game if one or two of them go down.
Be very problematic. A double taunt plus Sunder going to make it even harder, but the Cataclysm comes out as well as the Golden Apple. Azteck in the back, though, will get one kill, but Cosmic found one in return. POWAAAAAHHHH gets himself a double kill, though, and now Voulg is in trouble. Voulg is on the run. He's the last man standing. But can he get away from the might of this Wild Inferno squad? No, Scizzy. So much damage with the through space and time there, and that's a deicide going the way of Wild Inferno. Can they end the game?
That's what I was afraid of. I mean, Stormcallers really should not have taken that 6v4 because the Titan was there, and it's really just Blizzard to defend this game from ending and Wild Inferno going on to the finals.
Wild Inferno are trying to punch their ticket to the finals right now, and with Blizzard falling, that might just seal the deal. Spence is going to do what he can, but that Titan is getting lower and lower. Wild Inferno will take the set in a 2-0 and punch their ticket straight to the Immortal Division Finals. I feel bad for anybody who tries to stand up to Wild Inferno here in the Immortal Division. Every single member on that team was just firing on all cylinders the entirety of that set.
Yeah, everyone was doing so well that you almost don't want to pick out a breakout star. But then Azteck and Scizzy were playing so well ahead of that it has to be one of those two. But man, every person on Wild Inferno is firing off on all cylinders, and individually as well as a team. I mean, it's no shock that they get the 2-0 here. Stormcallers put up a hell of a fight. They did a lot of good things, and they did them well. But man, Wild Inferno is just so scary to watch right now if you have to go against them.
Yeah, I think the big thing is what you mentioned right there. The team cohesion on top of the individual plays is such a hard thing to go against, because if you fight in a 1v1, Wild Inferno looks pretty good. If you fight in a 5v5, Wild Inferno looks pretty good. It's just so hard to step up to them. Here's another hard question coming at you, Divine. If you had to give an MVP for the game, who are you giving it to?
Azteck is 10-0-7. It would be criminal to not give it to him for that game. He was always in the right spots, always where he needed to be, and always doing more than what was expected of someone picking Nike in the season celebration. So I would give Azteck that MVP award for this game. Just played lights out and made their job, everyone else's job, so much easier on the team.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Everybody played well. Scizzy was hitting insane shots on both the Giannis and the Toth, but it's just Azteck is built different, man. Just I feel if you're gonna go against Wild Inferno in the finals, whoever ends up facing them, ban the Nike. I feel like you have to ban the Nike. You can't let him have it if he's gonna be able to do that. He just looks too good.
Yeah, maybe you pick anti-shield gods. Maybe you see like a couple erosions or something. I don't know. I have no idea how to shut down Azteck, and no one else does either because Wild Inferno, they haven't lost yet, and they're going to the finals.
Well, that's going to do it for us here on the Smite Draft League semifinals matchup. Wild Inferno, as you said, moving on to the finals. So good luck to them there. Once again, I have been DoctahShru, joined by DivineApe with the ever wonderful Nooblet on production. And we will see you all in the next one. Have a good rest of your night, day, whatever time it is for you.